everybody should be open in their vocab to where we left off on Tuesday. Your textbook can be open at page 778. You should have a squiggly line underneath our last vocab word from the other day and today's date. Now we're not adding vocab, but we are going to talk about a new genre of story that you may or may not have heard about before. We're going to talk about a fable. A fable. And what is a, yes?
I've actually heard about a fable, but I don't really know what it means.
Well, now I'm going to tell you.
I wrote a story about a fable.
Okay, good. So what is a fable? Well, a fable is a very short story that teaches a moral or lesson. So a fable is a very short story that teaches a moral or a lesson. So if you were to type out a fable, it'd probably only take like 2 pages, like the front and the back of a page. Maybe a little bit of a third page, but it's not very long. They're very short. They reflect the beliefs and customs of a culture. So it's not just that it's a short story that teaches a lesson, because there are other types of short stories that do that. But the reason it's a fable is they also reflect the beliefs or customs of a country. Whoever came up with the fable, they'll usually use their beliefs and customs as part of the story. Sorry?
I'm not able to see it.
Which word?
I'm having trouble hearing you.
Okay. Is that a little better? Okay. Is that better? Okay. Yes, Victoria.
Fable is like in a religion book.
Kind of. Yes, there are. No, those are parables, is what you're thinking. Parables are. Let's see. Can you hear me better now? Sorry. Okay. So parables they're similar, and they do reflect the beliefs and customs of culture, religious culture, but they're not fables because of this next thing. They have animal characters. So the Bible stories don't have animal characters, but fables have animal characters that show human characteristics. So they can talk like humans. They wear clothes like humans. They live in houses like humans. They communicate like humans, but they're animals. So there's the difference between fables and parables. Because parables from the Bible have human characters, not animal characters. So Yes, Mason?
How do you spell
Characteristics. CHARACTERISTICS. Spell it one more time. CHARACTERISTICS. Okay, so now we know this is what a fable is. But what's a moral? Well, go back to the pink line. And we're going to define a moral. M-O-R-A-L. It's the lesson taught in a fable. That's not it. That's just the main thing. A moral is the lesson taught in a fable that is meant to be used in the reader's life. So morals are the lessons taught in a fable that are meant to be used in our life. So we learned the moral of The Boy Who Cried Wolf was that we shouldn't lie. Or the moral of The Tortoise and the Hare is that if you keep going and you don't stop, you can win. So today, we're going to read this story on page 778. It is a fable, and we're going to try to figure out the moral or the lesson that this fable is teaching. Yes, Mason. Put him to the side, because I might have something I want you to add. Yes.
I know a fable called The Ant and the Grasshopper.
Well, that's what we're going to read today, so you just heard it before. Oh, I'm sorry. I do want to add something to moral, so it's a good thing you didn't put it away yet. The moral is usually taught through the characters, and we're going to put S apostrophe because we're talking about more than one character, and the actions and words that they have. So morals, the author or the person who wrote down the fable, because fables are just like what we read before, I can't remember, where they're passed down by words, like people tell the story out loud and then eventually someone will write it down. The author or the storyteller won't tell us the moral. They won't say, hey, you just read Peter and the Wolf. The moral is don't lie, because then people won't believe you when you're telling the truth. You're going to get the moral, you're going to learn the lesson through the characters' words and actions. So it's like drawing conclusions or making an inference. You use what the characters did and what you know to put it together to come up with the moral. So we may not see, hey, the moral of this story is, or hey, the lesson the grasshopper learned was, or the ant said this, so we should do this. We have to think of their words and actions to figure out what the lesson being taught is. So first, tell us about the genre, me. So we just talked about this, but we'll talk about it again. Fables are stories that have animal characters that talk and act as people do. A moral or lesson usually appears at the end of the fable. And the literary elements we're going to be really paying attention to are the characters, because characters in a fable are often animals that have human traits and feelings. And the moral of a fable is the lesson it teaches, which the reader can apply to his or her own personal experiences. So what that means, apply it to your own experiences. Obviously, you are not a shepherd taking care of a bunch of sheep, watching out for wolves. But the lesson, don't lie or else people won't believe you, can be applied to your own life. Don't lie that you forgot your homework at home over and over and over again, because then eventually people aren't going to believe you. And they're going to look and be like, you just didn't do it. Or when you actually do forget your homework at home, you're going to get in trouble because that person's going to think that you lied again. So, morals aren't going to work exactly the way they do in the story. But we can apply them to our own lives in some way. Please read the title, the author, and the illustrator. Mason.
The Ant and the Grasshopper, retold and illustrated by Amy Lowry Poole.
So it says retold. Does that mean that Amy Lowry Poole was the first person to write this story? No, it means she heard it somewhere and she decided to write it down in her own words. Go ahead.
A long time ago, in the old summer palace at the edge of the
Emperor's
courtyard, there lived a grasshopper and a family of ants.
Okay, thank you. Read next. Lena.
The ants awoke every day before dawn and began their endless tasks of rebuilding their house of sand, which had been washed down by the evening rains, and searching for food, which they would store beneath the ground. They carried their loads grain by grain, one by one, back and forth all day long.
Thank you. This is short, so everybody's going to read one paragraph. Ethan, read next.
The grasshopper
Louder.
The grasshopper liked to sleep late in the morning, rising as the sun stretched toward noon.
Read that last little bit too, because that was short.
Silly, ants, he would say, you work too hard. Come follow me into the courtyard where I will sleep and dance for a great ant.
Okay? So, how are the ant and the grasshopper different? How are they different? Aaron.
The grasshopper, he gets to sleep in, and the ants, they have to get up and they have to work all day long.
Very good. So the ants don't stop working and preparing for that day. Whereas the grasshopper sleeps late, he relaxes, he sings and dances, he plays. Okay? Zari, read next.
The ants keep on working. Silly ants, the grasshopper would say. See the new moon. Feel the summer breeze. Let's go together and watch the emperor and her ladies as they prepare for the midsummer's eve.
Go ahead and read the next sentence, Zari.
But the ants ignored the grasshopper and kept on working.
Okay? So now the grasshopper's trying to get the ants to relax and play and sing and do nothing all day. Aaron, read next.
Soon the days grew shorter and the wind brought cooler air from the north. The ants, mindful of the winter to come, worked even harder to secure their home against the
Impending, that means upcoming, or it's going to come no matter what.
impending cold and snow. They foraged for food and brought it back to their nest, saving it for those cold winter months.
So we've read about these ants working really hard and this grasshopper not doing much. Why are the ants working so hard? Lena?
So they're working so hard to get food and stuff so that when winter comes, they don't have to go out in the cold and possibly get crushed.
Very good. So they're working really hard to prepare for winter. so that when it's really cold outside, they don't have to leave their nest. Also, what happens to food when it's really cold outside? Victoria.
It disappears.
It's
gone.
It's gone. It disappears under snow. It dies because most plants die in the winter. It gets really hard to find.
And also, there are so many ants that you have to get a lot of food.
Very good.
That's why they keep working all day and night.
Very good. There's lots and lots of ants. We learned that in our story we just read, The Life and Times of the Ants. There's lots of ants in one little colony. And do they just get food for themselves? No, they get food for everyone. So yes, that's why they work really hard. What does this tell you about their character? What does this tell you about the type of people these ants are? Smith.
They are kind, loving, and respectful ants.
Okay. Carla?
These ants are ants that work hard for the winter.
Very good. They are hard workers and they know how to prepare. They are hard workers. They know how to prepare. They care about the other ants because they want them all to have food. So look at this little white box with the red bars on it. It says, comparing the traits of the grasshopper and the ants will help you identify the moral. So let's go ahead and do that in our notebook. I'm going to erase these because everyone should have them. And we're going to create a little comparison chart. We're not going to do a Venn diagram because we don't really need to talk about how they're the same. Have we really even seen anything that shows they're the same yet? Other than they're both types of what? Zadie? Insects. So we don't need to make a Venn diagram. We're just going to make a table. Just a 2-column table. And on one side, we're going to talk about the grasshopper. And on the other side, we're going to talk about the ants. So we know the grasshopper likes to do what all day? Tell me one thing the grasshopper likes to do all day. Cullen. Sleep. Sleeps all morning, because it's not all day, but most, whatever. I'm just going to put that on the second line. So sleeps all morning. What else? Carla?
The grasshopper likes to dance and sing for the emperor.
Sings and dances. Based on these things, how would you describe the grasshopper? If somebody was like, what type of person is the grasshopper, what would you say? Zari?
Lazy.
Lazy. Anything else? Carla?
Not helpful to the ants.
Okay, we can say not helpful. What about silly? Could you use silly to describe the grasshopper? The singing and the dancing? Yeah. Now let's describe the ants. What do the ants do all day? Michaela?
Work.
Work on what?
Work on preparing for winter. Working for preparing for winter.
Okay. How specifically?
By
What are
ga-
2 things that they do to prepare for winter?
By gathering food.
Work. They work all day. They gather food. What else do they do?
They make sure everything is prepared and ready.
What specifically? Let's see. Victoria?
It's already on there. I have another one.
Well, are you going to say what else they do all day? They gather food and they
help each other.
how? Zadie?
They fix their nests.
They fix their nests, or Yeah, we'll say, fix their nest in order to do what Michaela said, which was work all day to prepare for winter. How would you describe the ants? Carla?
Hard workers.
Hard workers. Anything else? Zadie?
Well, I would say they're wise for making sure their nest is okay and having enough food. Because
Good.
they realize that in the winter they shouldn't go out because they might freeze or get hurt.
You may already be on to the moral of the story. Aaron?
They're helpful.
They're helpful. So you can see how you can use these actions and these descriptions of these characters to move towards the moral of the story. Some of you may be onto it, but in order to really figure out, is this the lesson, we have to read to the end. So, once you're finished with that, go ahead and turn the page. Yes, Victoria.
Can I make an observation?
Sure.
So I think that once winter starts to come, the grasshopper is going to have nothing and he's going to freeze outside.
Maybe. Now, I should have been saying this the whole time. That's actually called a prediction, not an observation. And I should have said that because we've been saying it this whole time as an observation, and I should have corrected it before, but it's a prediction. So that was your prediction. Victoria predicts that winter's going to come and the grasshopper is going to freeze and the ants will be all warm and safe. Okay, Zadie, Carla, then Zari. Then we got to move on. So while they're talking, make sure you're finishing our chart.
I've actually read the storybook because I got
No spoilers though.
I know I haven't read it in a long time, but I got a book of these type of stories.
So probably Book of Fables.
And they're all really cool, and they're about just two characters, and one's being good, and the other person is doing something bad.
So they probably all have similar morals. Okay. Is that what you wanted to talk about? Do you have something similar?
No, it was something similar as Victoria. It was a prediction.
Okay, but you said you've read this story before.
I read it before,
So-
but I'm not going to say.
Well, then we're not going to make a prediction because if you've read it before, you're just telling what happens next. So that's not a prediction. That's telling everybody what happens, but we want to read it on our own. If you were just out on the playground or something and someone said, "Oh, yeah, I've heard about that story. Is it good?" And you're like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh, well, tell me about it." Then you can summarize it for them. The opposite of a prediction is a summary. Because if you've seen it, you're not predicting what's going to happen. You're telling in your own words what already happened. But if somebody says no spoilers, or we're in class and we're about to read the story, we're just going to keep our summaries to ourselves until the end. Okay? Zari?
Also, the grasshopper's being persuasive.
Okay. Oh, good. So he is. That is another thing that we can say about him. He is trying to persuade others to follow him. Maybe not a good persuasive person. Okay, read next. Victoria.
Silly ants, said the grasshopper. Don't you ever rest? Today is the harvest festival. The emperor will feast on mooncakes and sweet grains from the field.
Pause. Who remembers when we watched a movie that there was a big plot point about mooncakes? What country did that movie take place in? Ethan? China. So we learned, I erased it, but we learned that a fable includes or reflects the beliefs and customs of a culture. So now that we're reading about an emperor, which if you've ever seen Mulan, China has an emperor, and mooncakes, we know what culture does this story probably come from? Ethan? But specifically, which Asian country's culture? Chinese culture. Very good. Keep going.
I will play my music for him until the moon disappears. I will play my music for him until the moon disappears into the smooth lake water. Come and dance with me.
So he's still trying to persuade them to come have fun, be silly, be lazy with me. It's more fun. Stop your work. That'll wait. Come have fun with me. Smith, read next.
You would do well to do as we do, said one of the ants. Winter is coming soon and food will be hard to find. Snow will cover your house and you will freeze without shelter.
Carla.
But the grasshopper annoyed the ant's advice and continued to play and dance until the small hour of the morning.
So now the ants are coming back and saying, no, we are not going to come play with you. Stop asking. You should be working like us. And did the grasshopper listen? Do you think the grasshopper is acting foolishly? Could we add that to our chart? So he's lazy, not helpful, silly, and foolish. Kingston, read next.
Winter arrived a week later and brought worlds of snow and ice.
Keep going.
The emperor and his court left the summer palace for their winter home in the great forbidden city. The ants closed their door against ice and snow, safe from the winter, resting at last after a long days of preparation.
Okay, thank you. And Michaela.
And the grasshopper huddled beneath the palace eaves and rubbed his hands together in a mournful chirp, wishing he had held
Not held, but
heeded the ant's advice.
heeded means listened to and followed. So, Victoria, was your prediction correct? Yes. The ants spent all summer preparing for winter so they wouldn't be cold and hungry. And the grasshopper spent all summer playing and having fun and being lazy and foolish. And then what happened? Lena?
Now he's cold, he has no food to eat.
He's cold and he has no food to eat. Meanwhile, what's happening with the ants? Carla?
They are nice and warm and they have food to eat.
They are nice and warm and they have food to eat. So what is the moral of this story? What is the lesson we learn in this story about the ant and the grasshopper? Michaela?
That sometimes you should take other people's advice.
So, okay, there's one that we can listen. We can say, take other people's advice, but that could also mean, should the ants have taken the grasshopper's advice?
Oh, no.
No. So we can take that from it as long as we think the good advice like the ants have. But think of this story. Think of the actions of the ants and the actions of the grasshopper. What do their actions teach us? Zari.
Their actions teach us to listen to well, not to listen, but to start preparing for something earlier.
Very good. Yes. The moral of this story is prepare now. Don't wait till the last minute for anything. So now, obviously, we don't have to gather food and build our home to keep warm for the winter. We can go to the grocery store even when we're grown-ups. We can go to the grocery store in the winter. Our houses are built to be cool in the summer and warm in the winter, so we don't have to worry about that. But how can we apply this moral to our real lives? Victoria.
To always be prepared.
Okay, how can we always be prepared?
By still getting extra food so you don't have to go out.
Do we actually have to get food though? In our regular everyday life, as who we are, like us in this classroom, do we have to worry so much about starving or not having a home? No. There are people in this world that do. There are people in this city. But us in this classroom, we don't really have to worry about that like other people do. Like none of us are homeless or anything like that. We all know that we're going to have a warm place to sleep and food to eat. So in your life, and even if you're not the one in charge of that, your parents are. So in your life, as kids in this classroom, at this school, as you, how can you apply this moral to your life? Zadie.
Well, like when you have homework that's due, say it's Monday and it's due on Thursday, don't wait till Wednesday night to do it.
Very good. So if you have homework or a project or chores that you don't have to do right away, it would be better to just get it done instead of waiting till the last minute and then you have to do all that homework and the project and your chores and the studying all in one night. So yes, exactly, you can apply it to your schoolwork. Do it early or a little at a time so you don't have to do all of it at the very end. Mason?
I think the moral is do what is right and not what's wrong.
Well, yes, but is it wrong to play and have fun? And is it always right to do nothing but prepare? No. So really the moral is do things early so that you're not at the last minute in trouble. So prepare for the future or suffer the consequences. But yes, we can also learn kind of a side lesson to do the right thing instead of the wrong thing. But the main lesson is prepare now or suffer the consequences later. Carla, do you have another way to apply that into your real life?
Not have to be in real life.
Okay, well that's the question I'm asking right now.
Okay.
So everybody make sure if your hand is up, the question you are ready to answer is, how can you apply this moral, prepare now or suffer the consequences, in your real life? Zari. Take 2 more people's answers and then we need to move on.
So if you have a dance recital and you really don't know any of your steps, then you could start go ahead and get it over with and start practicing, and maybe every 10 the next day maybe practice for a couple of minutes, and then at the last minute you wouldn't be in trouble, and then you have to learn all the steps.
Exactly. So we don't just have to apply it to school. We can apply it to the things we do outside of school too, like dance or an instrument or soccer or ice skating. Any of the things that you guys like to do, you can use this moral, this lesson. Because you don't want to have a big recital or pageant or show or whatever, and you didn't start practicing anything till the night, or match or game, whatever, and you didn't start practicing till the night before. How is that going to go? How is that game or match or recital or pageant or show or whatever going to go if you waited until the night before to do any practice? Cullen?
It's going to go terrible.
It's going to go terribly. Imagine if you're in a play and you have 100 lines to learn and you wait until the night before. Are you going to get a standing ovation at the end of that play? Are people probably going to walk out in the middle of the play because they're like, this is horrible. I'm bored. This is awkward. Yes. So you don't just have to apply it to school. You can apply it to your extracurricular activities as well. Okay, we need to move on because we do have independent practice, and if it's finished before the end of the day, it can be added to your grade to maybe bring you, make sure that you get an award. So yes, we've all been the grasshopper in certain situations. But like Zari said yesterday, she actually said this last week, but it's okay to mess up, aka be the grasshopper, but learn from your mistakes. Be the ant next time. Okay, let's look at the guided practice. Then if you have questions, I'll come around individually. I'm sorry, independent practice. So, we have the box at the top that tells us helpful information about fables and morals. And then we have, it says read each fable and answer the questions. You have two very, very short little fables. Sometimes fables are just a paragraph long like these. Then answer the questions. So some of these questions, let's see, both of them are going to have a question about what the moral of the story is. And then the other question, the first question, just kind of helps you to think about the events and the actions and the words that lead you to figuring out the moral. So basically this, but in one much shorter question / answer. Any questions about the independent practice? It will be due by tomorrow morning. Let's see, we only have 7 minutes, so it's not going to be finished today. I mean, no, I don't want you to, because if you finish it in 7 minutes, it won't be your best work. But it can still help to bring up your final grade if I'm allowed to keep putting grades in. I don't know what day, the last day to put grades in. I just know I have to have my award sent tonight. Okay, go ahead. If you have questions, I will come and answer individually.